好，各位读者早安。然后，大家应该认识我是 Miller 好。然后就是有一个比较特殊的那个 update 要跟大家讲一下，就是明年开始，也就是今年美国的下一个年度，就是今年10月开始呢，news 的办理模式可能会有一些调整。对，那有一个很残酷的现实呢，必须要跟大家讲，就是说美国国务院那边呢，他把 news 的经费全部砍掉了。就是这个项目我们其实是没有办法再执行的，但是我们明年开始呢，用偷渡的方式呢，就是我们会请 Douglas， 就是不是用讲那个每天的那个 Taipei Times， 我们会请他用这个，大家可以看到这个是一个叫 Press Reader， 它是美国国务院那边订阅的一个报纸跟期刊的那个资料库。然后到以后10月之后呢 ，Douglas 就会试着去找一个他觉得 OK 的跟大家分享的主题，那就是在跟大家分享。他上课的方式都不会变，一样都是讲文章，但是主题呢会比较配合，就是美国很看重明年是他们建国250周年的主题，这样，所以明年每个月1次，总共12次的课程呢都。这是大声一点，哦呦，好。然后就是明年12次的课，从10月开始12次课程呢，Douglas 可能就会从这里面去挑一个有关运动啊、历史啊、美国的历史人物啊，相关的主题要跟大家讲。但是大家都知道 Douglas 一开始会都是大概讲2到3篇嘛，对不对？那我通常就是拍照，前面的是照这个主题，那后面的就让 Douglas 自己挑。就是我们是说偷渡的啦，对，就是说先跟大家 update 一下，比较不好意思，就是说很确定就是明年开始就是剩每个月是1堂课这样子，那先跟大家公告。那赖群组如果今天没有来的人，我会在赖群组再公告一次这样子，对，那就是希望大家跟 Douglas 一起，可能要渐渐适应这个步调。那可能9月的时候呢，我就请 Douglas 先是试用一下这里面的资源。这里面资源其实是很不错的，那就是大家看到 Times 啊，这其实什么都有，美国各州的，包括各州的报纸其实都有，其实它非常的丰富，那也是大家可以期待一下，未来这几个转变这样子。好，那我就把时间交给 Douglas 了。
Thank you. So how are you all today? Good, good. Yeah, I think this press reader is pretty interesting. When I went to university, I noticed here, this is the newspaper I used to read every day, the Philadelphia Inquirer from, you know where Philadelphia is, right? Feicheng, right? Yeah. So anyhow, I used to read this newspaper every day. But yeah, it'll be kind of interesting to go back and look at that. Because I actually haven't looked at that newspaper in a very long time. So, yeah, I see they have Washington Post and many others. So, yeah. Okay, good. If you have any questions about any of that, I'm sure you can ask Miller afterwards about some of these changes. But that's fine. You know, we'll keep going. Just some small things, differences, and we'll keep learning new English words and looking at articles together. Yeah. Okay, so I thought we would start, of course, when you watch the... Well, first of all, I want to say that I had a very good time in America. I spent about 1 week in Hawaii, and I visited my friends on Kauai. I think Kauai is, in Chinese, I think it's Ke'ai Dao, right? Not Guandao. Yeah. So Kauai is one of the smaller islands. It's called the nickname is called the Garden, I think it's called the Garden Isle. I think that's the official nickname, because it's very more xiangxia, more country-like. And then, of course, my last few days were on Oahu Dao, which is where Honolulu, yeah. But Oahu and Honolulu are very, very different from Kauai. So Kauai is much quieter. It's very, very peaceful. I really like Kauai. But unfortunately, I found out my friends, I stay with friends every time there, they're moving. They've lived in Kauai for over 20 years, and they're moving to the Seattle area because their sons are already living over there. And it's funny because in Hawaii, many of my Hawaiian friends, they tell me that if you live in Hawaii for a very long time, they call it, they have a funny name for it, they call it island fever. Okay, island fever, it's not like a real fa xiao, but it basically means when you live in a small place, a small island for a long time, after a while you start to feel kind of uliao, like you need to get out, you need to leave and go somewhere else. And so, I think my friends are living in paradise, right? It's just beautiful, very peaceful. But they said, we've been here over 20 years. Our sons are in near Seattle or in America. They say our sons are in the mainland. In 美国, we also say 大陆, right? 美国大陆, a mainland USA. And they just said we're ready to leave. So from my perspective, 角度, it seems crazy, but for them, I understand that it's time for them to go. So I was very sad. This is my last time staying with my friends in Kauai. I hope to go back to Kauai in the future, but I won't be able to stay with them. Maybe I'll have to stay in a hotel. And then I went to Honolulu, and I saw my uncle and my aunt, who are still living there. And then I went, of course, to Bingzhou, Pennsylvania, for about 10 days. So yeah, that was very nice. I enjoyed it. And it was good to get back and see everybody. So, okay, good. So anyhow, my aunt, by the way, is she's 99 years old. And next year in April, she's having her 100th birthday. So she was, she was very, she said, I don't care, it's no big deal, 随便. But I know that many of her nephews and nieces will come to wish her happy birthday. So I was kind of thinking, this would be a good 借口 excuse to go back to Hawaii in April. So I don't know, maybe I'll go to Hawaii again in April to wish her a happy birthday. Yeah, she's in pretty good health. And my uncle is 93, and he's still driving, and everything. I know in Taiwan they talk about older people driving, but I know my aunt, she doesn't drive now, but she was driving until about 5 or 6 years ago. And my uncle, no problem, he's still driving, 93 years old. So so anyhow. Yeah. 70. Right. You have to kind of retest. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay, so I thought we would start with, of course, if you watch the local news, everybody's still talking about Donald Trump, and of course Taiwan and tariffs. The word tariff. Of course everybody knows about tariffs. But I thought this story was almost kind of funny because it's like if you ask your friend for, maybe you want to borrow some money from your friend, and they say, I'll give you $20, and you say, thank you so much for giving me $50, right? And they're like, no, I gave you $20. No, thanks, I really appreciate the $50. So yeah. So I when I read this, I kind of thought that's kind of like what I see here. So it says here, TSMC spending $300 billion in Arizona, Trump, according to Trump. So let's read this. It says, U.S. President Donald Trump on Tuesday said that Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company could invest $300 billion in Arizona, which would be nearly double the total investment TSMC has announced to date in the U.S. Okay, when we say to date, it means until now. Like in Chinese, I think we say 目前, right? So if you say to date, I'm halfway through this project. To date, I have talked to 10 of my friends about this. So it means up until now. So whenever we say to date, that's what it means. Okay. So of course, I think everything else. Yeah. So basically, this is it's almost double what TSMC has announced so far, which is I think $165 billion. Okay, so let's read this together. U.S. President Donald Trump on Tuesday said that Taiwan Semiconductor manufacturing company could invest $300 billion. Okay, let's say it again. $300 billion in Arizona, which would be nearly double the total investment TSMC has announced to date in the U.S. Okay, so then let's see here. We have the biggest chip maker in the world from Taiwan is coming over and spending $300 billion in Arizona building the biggest plant in the world for chips and semiconductors. Trump said in an interview on CNBC's financial talk show, Squawk Box. Okay, so this is CNBC is a TV network, and this is a financial TV show or talk. We say talk show. Taiwan has many talk shows on their news channels. It's interesting. Squawk is a funny word. Squawk is a sound that birds will make when they not chirp. Sometimes when we say a bird will chirp, like a chirping bird. Like when you wake up in the morning, you can hear the birds chirping outside, making their sounds. But squawk is usually like a louder sound. It's like sometimes when I look at baby birds, like small birds, they make this really loud sound. Usually that's what we call squawk. So if we say someone is squawking or a bird is squawking, they're making kind of a loud sound. It's not a small sound. It's not like singing, but it's like this loud sound. So I think sometimes when we say someone's squawking, it means they're talking very loud. So it's not a common word, but it's a word we use sometimes. So why don't we say it together? Squawk. Squawk. Okay, so let's see here. Of course, you know that when we say semiconductors or 半导体, another way people often refer to this is chips, right? We talk about chips. 镜片, I think is right. So he says we have the biggest chip maker coming over and spending $300 billion. Okay, so actually he says chips and semiconductors, but I think they're pretty much the same. Okay, so let's read this. We have the biggest chip maker. Chip maker in the world from Taiwan is coming over and spending $300 billion in Arizona, building the biggest plant in the world for chips and semiconductors. Trump said in an interview on CNBC's financial talk show. Let's say it again, financial talk show. Squawk Box. Okay. Trump said that new tariffs on semiconductors and chips would be unveiled within the next week or so, calling them a separate category because the U.S. wants those products made domestically. Okay, so tariff, of course, we've talked about that before, 关税, right? And then unveiled. We've talked about this word a long time ago. What does to unveil mean? Yeah, I think the easiest word is probably to reveal, right? When you show something, you reveal it, right? You reveal, sometimes people will reveal a secret, right? So to reveal something, but to unveil, what is a veil? V-E-I-L. It's like a covering, right? I'll give you an example. I think it's funny, they do this, I think, in Chinese culture and Taiwanese culture and Western culture, but during a marriage ceremony, the bride usually has a veil over her face, and then of course she is unveiled, right? The veil is lifted, okay? So why don't we say that, let's say this first word, veil. Veil. Unveiled. Unveiled. And then that word over there, reveal. Reveal. Okay, so he says this is a separate category because the U.S. wants those products made domestically. What would be another word for domestically? Locally, yeah, we could say locally. When you go to an airport, usually they have international and domestic, right? So domestic. It's funny because at an airport, they don't usually use the word local. They just say domestic flights or, local. It's funny because local almost sounds even more local. Like when I think of local, I think of, around here in Taichung, not just Taiwan. So if I'm talking about Taiwan 国内, I would probably use the word domestic. But if I'm talking about Taichung, like just around Taichung, I would probably use the word local. It's even more smaller in an area. But they're both very similar words. Okay, yes? Yeah. That's interesting. I think in America we just use the word state. We say state taxes. Well, interstate means between states, right? But if you say, I think the word for inside the state would be intra, but we don't use that word too much. INTRA means inside. But yeah, we talk about, in America we have federal or national taxes, and we also have state taxes, okay? And so you have, and of course you mentioned the interstate highways. Like there's many big highways that go across America, and we call them like international, INTER. Interstate means a highway, like a 高速公路 that runs across different states, not just inside the state. Because just like, in Taiwan, I know they still use the word 省道, right, or something like that. But it's like a local road. But then we have the 国道, right? So we have the state highways and the interstate highways, yeah. But yeah, I think if we said local, even in America, we would still be referring to our immediate area, like our city or a town or wherever we live, okay? So let's say it together. Let's first say this word, domestic. Domestic. Domestically. Domestically. I'll just say there's one other way that this word gets used. Like in Taiwan, we have many 外国人 from 东南亚, and they come to Taichung and they become domestic helpers. Okay? So if you are a domestic helper, what is that? Like a maid, yeah. I think probably some people, they don't like to use the word maid anymore because maid sounds kind of old-fashioned, but M-A-I-D, right? But that's the word we used to say, a maid. But, I think now people say domestic helpers, okay? So basically they're working inside the house to help take care of the house, right? Yeah, caregiver, but a domestic helper is not always a caregiver. A caregiver is specifically somebody who's helping care for somebody. But a domestic helper would help with many things like cooking and cleaning and all kinds of things. So they would do many different tasks or jobs around the house. Yeah. No, that's more for outside labor. Like a farmhand is a worker who works on a farm. We use the word hand as a 名词, right? A hand, but to describe a person. But that's really just for like working outside and usually doing labor. Yeah. What? I think we would also say domestic helper. Yeah, domestic helper, domestic worker. Yeah, helper I think is probably a better word. If you said maid, I mean, some people might still use the word maid, but I don't know. I just kind of get the feeling that maybe some people would think, that's, yeah. Au pair is different. Au pair is somebody who comes and takes care of children. They live with the family, and that's usually, when you say au pair, that's usually for very rich families, people who have 很有钱. And you usually go and you go to another country. Like I've met some Taiwanese. It's a very specialized word. You don't hear it much, but it's a French word. Au pair. Sorry, that's an I. And it's One of my friends, his daughter, when she graduated from university, she was an au pair for, 2 or 3 years, and she flew to France, 法国, and she lived with a French family, and she took care of their children. And maybe it was because, I'm guessing, but maybe sometimes she's American, so maybe they wanted her to teach the children English, maybe. But she lived with them, she watched the children every day, and so au pairs are usually young women, and they usually live with the family, and all they do is take care of the children. They don't do, they don't cook, they don't clean, they don't do that, they just watch the children. So yeah, it's a very special word, and we use it usually for rich people. So, yeah. Domesticate, okay, that's a good question. To domesticate, yeah, let me squeeze that in here. To domesticate, this is a 动词. Domesticate is when you have an animal that is wild, right? And you want to make that animal domesticated, which means that the animal is like tame. It can help work you. Whenever I see domesticate, I think of pets. Like people might say, is that cat, Mao, is it domesticated? Which means if it's domesticated, it can live inside the house. It can come in, it knows how to, you know how cats, they have this, we call it a litter box, right? When they want to, use the bathroom, toilet, they go to a special box, right? So we say that cat is domesticated. But if it's not domesticated, then it's like, it's wild. So, for example, farms, like 农场, you have domesticated animals like cows, right, or horses, or other animals that you can care for them. Now, some animals, they don't seem like they're completely domesticated, but they are on the farm, right? They're not completely wild. So domesticate means to make something into that kind of animal, like to train it or to make it so it's not wild. So, does everybody understand that? Okay. Why don't we say it together? To domesticate. To domesticate. And of course, if you want to turn that into a 形容词, then you just add a D at the end. So we say it is domesticated. Okay. Why don't we say that? Domesticated. Domesticated. Okay. Okay, so let's go back to this here and read this paragraph. It's together. Okay? Trump said that new tariffs on semiconductors and chips would be unveiled within the next week or so, calling them a separate category. Separate category. Because the U.S. wants those products made domestically. Domestically. Right. You know what a category is, right? Yeah, it's a kind. It's a type. T-Y-P-E, a type, a kind of something. Like we say, there's many categories of books, yeah, or stores, or anything. I mean, there's all kinds of categories.
Do you think Donald Trump's tariff strategy has worked out well so far?
Which strategy?
Tariff strategy to...
You mean tariffs?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously you need some time to see if it's going to work, all right? Because it's easy to apply tariffs, but then the question is long term, does it help your economy or does it hurt your economy? Now, of course, right now it looks like it's helping, right, the U.S., because many companies are investing more money into the United States and they're buying more U.S. products. But then, of course, the argument, some people would argue and say, well, does that make costs higher? Does that create inflation? Does that make everything more expensive for Americans? So, of course, and then there's other effects, like our relationships with other countries and things like that. So I think I think when we look back on this 2 years or 3 years or 4 years from now, I think we'll be able to look at it and have a better judgment about I think right now some Americans are saying, oh yeah, Donald Trump, this is great, and I think other Americans are saying this is a disaster, So I think it really depends on who you're talking to. Some people think it's going to do many good things for America, and some people think it's going to really do bad things for America. So I think that this is a, who knows, 谁知道, right? But obviously, as I've said before, Donald Trump has a very specific strategy. And that is he believes that the American economy needs to be, pushed up again. It needs to be raised. Manufacturing needs to come back to the United States and not just be in other countries. And I have to say that, I was thinking about this on the way over today, of course, it's not great for many of America's other countries, their friends in other countries. And it makes trouble for their economies and for the people in other countries. But I do think if you look at it from America's perspective, with, for example, semiconductors,半导体, America is very worried that if you were a big country and all your semiconductors were made in other countries, especially one country that's very close to your biggest enemy, right? Then I think they would be like, we need to do something about this, right? Now, of course, as we've talked about this many times before, and I think everyone who knows this would agree, there's no way that Taiwan's semiconductor industry is going to go to America. But I think what the U.S. wants is they want a bigger percentage, of semiconductors to be made in the United States. They don't want to just rely completely on the hope that everything is okay in Taiwan and everywhere else. So that's their strategy. Again, you talk to anybody who knows semiconductors in this industry, there's no way you can just say, okay, yeah, we want, semiconductors to be made in Arizona or somewhere else. So I do think it's their pressure, they're using this to pressure Taiwan and other countries to build more stuff. Not just 半导体, but more stuff. Cars, semiconductors, I don't know what else, many other things in the United States, not just build it in their own countries. So yeah, so it's kind of interesting. Yeah. So anyhow, yeah, it's a lot of 麻烦 and trouble for everybody, including Taiwan, of course. If Donald Trump was standing here and you asked him that question, I'm sure he'd say yes, of course, right? Yeah, I'd love it, But the question is that realistic or not? Would that really happen? And I think the overwhelming answer is no. You can't just pick this up and move it somewhere else. And what is made in Arizona is much more expensive than what's made in Taiwan. So, and again, Taiwan doesn't only supply the U.S., it supplies the whole world for semiconductors. So again, I think it's a lot of trouble and it's a lot of hassle, and of course there's a lot of pressure on TSMC in Taiwan. But I think this is all part of his negotiating strategy. He's a deal. He likes to say he's a deal maker. Didn't he write a book? It's called The Art of the Deal, right? So I think as long as Taiwan and other countries can give Donald Trump a deal, if I were TSMC in Taiwan, I would say sure. We'll invest $300 billion, but you notice that all of their recent agreements that Japan and Korea that they have with the U.S., they're very vague. Vague. You know the word vague? Unclear, right? I saw that even Japan, they don't have anything in writing. There's nothing written down, right? They just 讲话, right? So it's very vague. Vague means unclear. If you say something and it's not very clear. So I would say, yeah, we'll invest $300 billion, but that may be over the next 20 years, right? But again, I think it's to give him 面子 and to say, oh, I made a deal, right? So I think that's kind of what he wants. He wants to score a win, to get a win. And I was reading, sorry, I'm getting off track here, but I was reading, a lot of experts were saying, because Taiwanese are very worried about this 20% tariffs, but they were like, if you look at Japan and Korea, what did they give the U.S. to get 15%. They all said, oh, we'll invest $500 billion. We'll buy like this, and we'll open up our 농產品, for Americans to come in. And we'll buy all American farm products and stuff. The question is, does Taiwan? And so some of these experts are saying, actually, Taiwan got a pretty good deal because they didn't have to do all those things to get 20%, right? So Taiwan could maybe get 15%, but what do they need to do to get 15%? Do they have to do like Japan does and say, do the Taiwanese farmers want to open up the market to American food products? No. I think that's the clear answer. Does Taiwan want to invest, $600 billion in the United States? So I think, it's all, well, as we say, it's all a negotiation, right? And that's what he's doing. He's kind of negotiating. So I think, it's not easy and it's not great. And of course, everybody, I'm sure, wishes it was like it was before. But I think it's, we've moved past that. It's a different world. Ultimately, I mean, I know that I'm not, obviously you're not Americans, but ultimately I think that if the American economy is strong and doing well, and America's, doing, prosperous, I think I like to think that it's good for everyone. I would rather see that happen than China just keep going up and up and up and dominating the United States, and then what? Then you have a dominant China and America's falling further and further behind, and then, I don't know, would you rather have China telling you what to do, or, I don't know, the United States? That's my perspective. Maybe some people say, yes, we do prefer China, but I don't know. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. So anyhow, it says here, TSMC, which in March announced it would expand its investment in the U.S. to $165 billion over several years, declined to respond to media inquiries about Trump's remarks, saying that any comments would be made through official company statements. Okay, so so as we said before, TSMC already said they would expand, grow. I believe before it was like $100 billion, and then they grew it to $165 billion. Over several years. Now, again, this is a little bit vague, right? Over several years, what does that mean? I don't know. So decline, okay, what does decline mean? We talked about this? Refuse, right? But it also can mean, for example, hopefully this doesn't happen to you, but if you're in America and you're shopping and you give them your credit card, your 信用卡, the word they often use, if it doesn't work, they say your credit card has been declined, okay? So it means that it doesn't work. Machine will not accept it. So decline is, if someone invites you to do something and you say, I declined his invitation, it means I said no, okay? So we use that word in many, many different ways. Why don't we say together, declined? Declined. Now, if you want to do something, like you're favorable to something, there's a very similar word. If you say, I am inclined, okay? So if you say, I am inclined to do that, it means that I am favorable. I would like to do that, okay? I am inclined to accept. It doesn't mean that I have. It doesn't mean I've done that. But it means that I would like to, okay? So I am inclined to accept her invitation. I'm inclined to say yes. It means I'm leaning towards that. I want to do that. I would like to do that, okay? So when we say inclined to, we usually use the word to, okay? Actually, why don't I just add that here? So inclined to do something, okay? Yeah. What? Yeah, we could say I'm given to doing something. Yeah, you could say it that way. Yeah, and you actually just used a word that's related to that, inclination. An inclination is something that you would like, you like to do or prefer to do. Like you have an inclination to eat Chinese food. I don't know. It means you are favorable to that. You have a preference. Maybe actually that's a very similar word. If you say he has a preference for Chinese food, okay? We could say that's similar to inclination, because prefer, right, means I 比较喜欢, I like that. So I'm inclined to eat Chinese food. I have an inclination for Chinese food. I have a preference for Chinese food. Okay? So why don't we say together, inclined to. Inclined to. And then this word, inclination. Inclination. Preference. Preference. Okay. So, but again, as we said earlier, decline. Now, there is no, we cannot say declination. I don't think that word exists. I don't think so. But yeah, we don't say declination. But we can say decline to respond to the media. Okay. Let's read this then. TSMC, which in March announced it would expand its investment. Okay, its investment in the U.S. to $165 billion over several years, declined to respond to media inquiries about Trump's remarks, saying that any comments would be made through official company statements. Let's say it again. Official company statements. Right. So, when we make a statement or we make a remark, these two words are very similar, right? If you remark, it means, or we could say, or here's another word, comments. Okay? So these three words are all very similar to remark on something or to make a remark. So remark can be a 名词 or 动词. Same with comment. You could say, do you have any comment on this? Or some people say no comment, right? It's funny because when people say no comment, often it means they disagree or they're not happy, right? If you say, do you like this food? And someone says no comment, usually it means I don't like this food, right? But they don't want to say that, so they just say no comment. Of course, if you liked it, you would say, yeah, I like it. But if someone says no comment, so yeah, and then of course the statement is also something that you say. But this word, if you want to make it into a 动词, then we have to use the word state, to state something. Whereas these two, we can just say the same word. So state something or make a statement, okay? Why don't we say these together? Remark. Remarks. Comments. Comments. Statements. Statements. Okay. Yes. Singular. We never say no comments. We say no comment. With an S? Okay, yeah, we don't usually add an S. We just say no comment, okay, because it's I think that's the correct use of that word when you say it in that way. I have no comment. Not really. I mean, it makes sense, but it's not the way we usually say it. Yeah. So, but you might ask them, would you like to remark on that? Would you like to comment about that? Means, would you like to say anything about that? Okay. Or would you like to make a statement? Okay. Okay. Would you like to state your ideas? Would you like to, so these are all words we can use. Okay. So it says here, TSMC's original, it was originally $65 billion. So TSMC's original $65 billion investment in the U.S. was to build 3 chip fabrication plants, while the additional $100 billion investment would be put into 3 new fabs, 2 advanced packaging facilities, and a research and development center, the company said at the time. Okay, so here we have this chip fabrication. Now, the word fabricate, T-E, what does fabricate mean? To make, to manufacture, to produce. You can fabricate many things, not just 半导体. You can fabricate a machine. You can but the word is used very common with 半导体. So often when we say, I'm sure you know this, instead of a factory, they often say as a 名词, they say a fab, F-A-B. So you can say like Meiguang and TSMC, they have several fabs in Taichung, right? So we call that a fab, F-A-B. for short. It's short for fabrication plant. Okay? So why don't we say this together? Fabrication. Fabrication. And then let's use this as a 动词, to fabricate. To fabricate. I will say the word fabricate sometimes is used when you make up something, like to fabricate a lie. You know, if you lie to somebody, you can say he fabricated the truth, or he fabricated a lie. It means he made up something that's not real. Okay? So we can use this word when you're just saying something that's not truthful, or you say something that you just kind of make up. You know, we say he fabricated that. It's imaginary. It's not real. Okay? So yeah, it's all in his head. Okay, so chip fabrication plants, and then, so here's where they use the word fab. So this is the way they say it. Okay, advanced packaging facilities, of course, this is for 半导体. They have to 包装, like to package. And then, of course, research and development, we often say just R&D, right? R&D. Okay, research and development. Okay, so let's read this. TSMC's original $65 billion investment in the U.S. was to build 3 chip fabrication plants. Fabrication plants. While the additional $100 billion investment would be put into 3 new fabs. 2 advanced packaging facilities and a research and development center. The company said at the time. Okay. So then he says here, TF International Securities Group Company analyst Guo Mingqi cast doubt on Trump's numbers. TSMC's officially announced investment is $165 billion, while Trump previously stated $200 billion. His further escalation to $300 billion seems to be laying the groundwork for upcoming semiconductor tariffs, consistent with his stated approach of starting with an extremely high number, then negotiating down, Guo wrote on social media. Okay, so there's a couple phrases here. This guy is you know what an analyst is, right? Most, like 投资银行, they have an analyst. I have friends who have worked as analysts, right? That comes from the word to analyze, right? A-N-L-Y-Z-E, to analyze, right? There's many things that we might analyze, right? We might analyze our own health, right? We might analyze something else, but to analyze something. But of course, the person who analyzes things is an analyst, okay? So let's say the word, the 动词, let's say that first. To analyze. To analyze. Analyst. Analyst. And then if, what is the 名词 for, when after you analyze something, you have what? Yeah, we have a analysis. This is the result, right? It's like the report, right? What is the result of your analysis? Okay, of analyzing something, you have an analysis. So for example, the doctor might say, "This is my analysis of your health." Okay, this is what I think. Yeah, like a 结果, right? So let's say together, analysis. Analysis. Okay, now this is an interesting thing. He said to cast doubt on Trump's numbers. When you cast doubt on something, what does that mean? Right. It means, like, I think to question. Okay? So you know what doubt is, right? Okay? If someone says, you know what, I think I can finish this today, and you say, I doubt it, means I don't think so, right? So this is if you say, I am, what's the 形容词? I am Doubtful. So it's D-O-U-B-T-F-U-L. I am doubtful that he can do that, or he means that, okay? So why don't we say, remember this B has no sound, okay? So why don't we say together, doubt. Doubt. Doubtful. Doubtful. Okay, so cast, what does cast mean? To throw, right? I'll tell you where this word gets used a lot. If you like to 钓鱼, like to fishing, right? What do? You cast your line into the water, right? And so the fish, hopefully the fish will catch it. So if you cast your line. Some of you maybe like fishing. But to cast doubt means to express doubt. To express doubt. It's like to express your doubt, like to doubt something. So basically, this is a very common expression. If someone does something, you say, he cast doubt on this. It means he expressed his doubt about something. Okay? So why don't we say it one more time? Cast doubt. Cast doubt. Okay, and then below this, it says here, he previously, of course, previously, stated 200 billion. So it says his further, we could say additional or further escalation. What is, we've talked about the word to escalate, T-E. What escalate means what? To increase, to go up. So escalation is just the 名词, right? We say to escalate, okay, means to make bigger, to increase. And then escalation is just the 名词, right? Like if you could say the war is escalating, it means the war is getting bigger, increasing, right? And you could say, or you could say there is an escalation in the war, or escalation in the fighting between the two sides, okay? So why don't we say it together? To escalate. To escalate. Escalation. Escalation. Okay, and then of course, I'll just tell you, the opposite of escalate would be to de-escalate. Just add a de in the front. To de-escalate or de-escalation, okay, means to reduce, okay. Just 2 days ago, I was having a cafe with a friend from Cambodia, and she just came back from Cambodia, and she was very worried about the fighting, between Taiguo and Cambodia, right? Because they've been fighting, and I feel bad for Cambodia because it's a small country between Vietnam and Thailand, right? And whenever there's fighting, it seems like other countries can push Cambodia around. I don't know. I'm sure Thailand has their own perspective on this war or this fighting with Cambodia, but she gave me her perspective on why this started and what Thailand is doing, and so it was interesting. But hopefully, I told her, hopefully the fighting between, or the conflict between Thailand and Cambodia can be de-escalated. It can be reduced, right? What? Well, actually, she said the biggest problem is there's this temple, right? On the border, there's this temple that Cambodia has, but Thailand says that temple belongs to us, right? And so there was fighting in 2008, and now there was fighting again. And anyhow, there's other problems too, but yeah. Cambodia. Cambodia is Jim Busai, yeah. So what? Oh, well, the term is the people. The king, they used to be, Khmer was their empire. Cambodia used to be the heart of the great empire that covered all of, parts of Thailand and many other places. It was a great kingdom. So they call that, they still sometimes say the Khmer people, like Cambodian people. Or a Khmer, culture, So, But I remember when I was in college studying this a lot because, during the Vietnam War, Cambodia was kind of caught in the middle because Vietnam used Cambodia to send soldiers to South Vietnam, and then the U.S. started to bomb Cambodia, and then, there's all kinds of problems, so Platoon, Platoon. But Platoon was about Vietnam. It wasn't about. Well, and the U.S. did invade Cambodia in 1970, right? Briefly, President Nixon sent troops into Cambodia for a short time. But there's another movie that I would strongly recommend. It's called The Killing Fields. Yeah. I've watched this movie. I find this movie used to be one of my, it sounds weird to say favorite movies, but it's a movie that I watched Killing Fields. But it's a true story. And it was very interesting because it's about a doctor. No, he's not a doctor. I don't know if he's, actually the actor is a doctor. He's actually Cambodian. But the guy that was the main character is a Cambodian reporter who worked for the 纽约时报. And then he was captured by the, when Cambodia fell to the Khmer, the communists. He was under that time there. But I met him. I met the real guy in person. He came and spoke at my university, and I was so excited. I really wanted to meet this guy. So I remember meeting him, and then I had him sign his autograph, because I really wanted to meet this guy. So yeah. Okay, so anyhow, back to the story. It says, Trump's further escalation seems to be laying the groundwork, okay, for upcoming semiconductor tariffs. When we say laying the groundwork, there's another, actually we can use a different word here too. What does that mean? It means preparing for, okay? So the other word we can use, groundwork, instead of groundwork, we can use a very similar word, is foundation, okay? And what is a foundation? Yeah, like groundwork, yeah. Yeah. So foundation, every building, right, like a 大楼, right, has a foundation, like a base, right? And you need to have a base to build the building, to construct. Before you build this building, you need to lay a foundation, right? You need to lay the groundwork so that you can construct the building. So when we say laying the groundwork or laying a foundation, it means to prepare for, okay? 准备好, okay? Prepare for, okay? So why don't we say it together? Laying the groundwork. Okay, laying, and when we use the word foundation, we say lay a foundation. So laying a foundation. Okay, so for upcoming or preparing for upcoming semiconductor tariffs, consistent with his stated approach. Okay, when we say something is consistent with, what does that mean? It means the same as. Okay, so if someone is very consistent, it means that they always do the same thing. They follow the same way. But if they're inconsistent, then it means maybe you say this, but you do that, or you do it this way, but then tomorrow you change, and you're up and down. So usually we think people who are very consistent it's good, usually. Although you could consistently do something bad, right? You could say your teacher is consistently late for class, right? Yeah, so that's not good, right? But if someone is inconsistent, often that's not positive, right? Because we like consistency. Okay, so when we say it's consistent with his stated approach. Stated means he said this, his approach, his way of doing this. Okay, it means it follows what he says he does. So, everybody's studying Donald Trump right now. They're trying to understand his thinking, right? And his way of doing things. So they say that his doing this is consistent with his stated approach, his way of doing something. Okay? So why don't we say it together? Consistent with.
Consistent with.
Consistent with.
Consistent with.
And then let's use the other word. Inconsistent.
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 Yeah. Yeah. Flaky means you're inconsistent. Yeah. It's a very casual word, flaky. Flaky means that you don't commit to things very well. I'll tell you where I use this word a lot. Let's say your friend always says he's going to do something, but he never does it, or he often doesn't do it. Like, oh yeah, I'll help you, but then he doesn't help you. Oh yeah, I'll be there, but he's not there, right? We say that person's very flaky. Yeah. But this is a very casual word. It's like a slang word. But yeah, it just means that you're not, actually when you say flaky, probably the best word would be not inconsistent, but I would say unreliable. Yeah, so someone who's flaky is not reliable. They're unreliable. You know, they say things, but then they don't do them. Okay. So why don't we say together, flaky. 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 Unreliable. Unreliable. Okay, so here we say all of this is consistent with Donald Trump's stated approach of starting with an extremely high number and then negotiating down, okay? So, I mean, that's pretty common business practice, right? Yeah, so he's saying 300 billion, but maybe he really wants 200 billion, right? Okay. I know whenever I haven't been to China in a long time, but long time ago when I was 背报课, and whenever I would go to China, I learned very quickly that they always do this. Whenever you go shopping, everything, you know, you say, how much is that? And they're like, 100 renminbi. And then you're like, and then I would say, okay, I'll give you 20 renminbi. And they'd be like, okay, no, 25. Yeah. So yeah, but they always start really high, and then you have to go down low, and maybe come up a little. So yeah, but that's like negotiating or bargaining, right? Bargaining. We say 讲价钱, right? Or bargaining. Now, bargain, of course, is something that's cheap, but if we like to bargain as a 动词, then it becomes to 讲价钱, right? It's, bargaining. Why don't we say it together, bargaining. Oops. Spelled it wrong. That's a A-I. Yeah, bargaining. So, I think I've told you before, but not often, but sometimes 外国人 coming to Taiwan for the first time, they will ask me, they'll say, in Taiwan, can you bargain when you go shopping? And I say, well, not usually, unless you're like at the, the 传统市场, or maybe the, like a 夜市, not for food, but for maybe some other product, like a non-food item. Maybe you can bargain, but not usually. There's not too much bargaining. Yeah. Okay, so let's read this together from the top here. TF International Securities Group Company, analyst Guo Mingqi, cast doubt on Trump's numbers. TSMC's officially announced investment is $165 billion. While Trump previously stated $200 billion. His further escalation to $300 billion seems to be laying the groundwork for upcoming semiconductor tariffs. Consistent with his stated approach of starting with an extremely high number, then negotiating down. Guo wrote on social media. Right, okay. Okay, I think we can go to a different story. There's a lot of numbers and other things here, but... Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, that's his whole image, right? He's not he tries to be different, and that's why a lot of Americans support him, right? Because a lot of Americans are tired of typical politicians, right? They want somebody who's going to challenge the system, not just the global system, but also the local, domestic American system. So yeah, a lot of Americans think this is like We say a fresh breath. We say a breath of fresh air. Like it's different, right? It's not business as usual. Now, I'm sure some Americans do prefer business as usual, like normal. They don't want to change anything. But I think some Americans are very like, we need to change. We need to do something different. We need to go in a new direction. So yeah, so it's kind of interesting. But that has there's many different perspectives on that, right? When you talk to even inside the like 共和党, or you talk to people who support Donald Trump, they have different ideas about what is the way that we should do things. So yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting time. I mean, but yeah, I will, like I said before, I have friends who love Donald Trump, and I have friends who absolutely hate Donald Trump. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. I'm very mixed feelings about him. I have to say I don't like his style, his personal style. To me it's very, actually there's a word I would use. I'm probably, what? No, I would say abrasive. Do you know what abrasive is? It's very rough. Well, I'll tell you, when I think of abrasive, you know what I think of? Abrasive is actually a material. If you're building something, you know what sandpaper is? Sandpaper? It's a special paper, and you use it to rub something to make it smooth, and it's very rough, right? If you take sandpaper and rub it on your skin, it'll hurt, yeah. But yeah, so when abrasive would be, sandpaper is very abrasive. It rubs it's very harsh, and so I find like his personality and his style is very abrasive, and I personally, and this is me, I prefer someone who's more diplomatic, and more smooth, more friendly and easy to get. This is very Asian, Yacho. We like people. We have, 人情味, this kind of feeling. And of course, he's not like that. So that bothers me. And I also, personally, and this is my personal opinion, I do think that America needs to treat its friends and its enemies differently. I think that of course I understand where he's coming from. I mean, he says that he feels that even our friends have taken advantage of America for a very long time. And again, not all Americans feel that way, but many Americans feel that way. They feel that even our friends are taking advantage of us economically. So I understand his perspective, but I wish he would do it in a different way. His personality, his gushing, is sometimes, it's not my style. So yeah, my feelings are mixed. I think that I think as a businessman, I think he believes in keeping his word. Like when he says he'll do something, he'll do. And that's what a lot of Americans like about him, is unlike many politicians. Many politicians during the 选举, they make all kinds of promises. Oh, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do this, and then afterwards it's, what do you say in Taiwan? 跳票, right? It's the bounce the checks. He has a reputation of doing what he says he will do. If he says, I will do that, then he does it, right? And so a lot of Americans think that's very refreshing. If you say you're going to do it, then you do it, right? Migrants, all these people who have come into America illegally, right, from Mexico or other countries. Many presidents have said, oh, we're going to deal with this, but then they don't really do anything. And Donald Trump is, you can see, right, he's dealing with it. And of course, I say this over and over again, of course, some Americans really, really think this is wrong. But many Americans really, really support this. And it's one of the main reasons he was elected was illegal, what they call, even some Americans don't even like to say illegal immigration, but basically illegal or undocumented migrants, people who come in America without, legal protection or documents. So many Americans, actually, that was a key reason they voted for him. And he's doing it, right? They're kicking people out, they're pulling people up. But again, this is very divisive. A lot of Americans are not happy. Some people think it's great. So, yeah, you see, you have many different perspectives on Donald Trump. So he's very, actually I'll use another word. Very interesting word. We say he's very polarizing. Okay. Do you know what polarize? Okay. Yeah. So you know what polar means what? When you have two opposites, right? Like, you know, in the World show, we have the North Pole and we have the South Pole. So when something is polarizing, it means it really divides people, right? Or maybe it's not always a person. It could be an issue, right? When we say something is very controversial, but we could say it's also very polarizing, because some people might say, yeah, I 100% think that's great, you know, and then other people are like, completely wrong. You know, I hate this. This is, you know, wrong. It's evil. So it divides. It's very We could say it's very divisive. Okay. You know the word divide, right? So if we say something is very divisive, okay. But polarizing is a very interesting word too. It's something that's something or someone is very polarizing. So yeah, of course, Donald Trump is a very polarizing leader. You know. And yeah, why don't we say it together? Polarizing. Polarizing. Divisive. Divisive. Yeah. So, yeah. Yes. No problem. Mm-hmm.
Why the TSMC, their logo, TSMC, the T, they use the lowercase t, small t, not the capital T.
Mm-hmm.
Because they believe the substitution. 因为那个大的 T 它不能够突破过去 break through, so they use the small t. You can see the TSMC.
I've never heard that. That's interesting.
The T is small t.
Okay.
Lowercase t, not a capital T.
I thought it was just their style, you know, yeah. I will say, you know, it's amazing how much in the last 10 years, it's amazing how TSMC has gone from a kind of an unknown company. Oops, sorry, got the wrong article here. Yeah. Okay, so first of all, I think Donald Trump, he talks a lot, and he doesn't always, he tends to basically say stuff, and sometimes I don't know if he just throws things out there. So, so I think, I don't know. I mean, maybe he honestly believes that, but I think anyone who knows, you know, semiconductors knows that's not true, right? That, you know, of course, American companies bring their technology to Taiwan to make it, and American companies don't want to make that stuff, or they can't make it. I think a good example is Intel, right? Intel used to make a lot of those things, but they don't have the money to invest in, or they don't want to invest in it anymore, and so they've fallen behind. So I think, yeah, I mean, Taiwan couldn't make a lot of its semiconductors without U.S. designs, right? The designs for those semiconductors come from not ASML. They come from, NVIDIA or all these other companies, even Intel, right? They give Taiwan the blueprint, the design, and Taiwan builds it, right? So it's to say they stole it. I mean, yeah, I mean, it's like saying. I guess you could say Japan stole America's car industry. You know, I mean, you could say that, but it doesn't mean that Japanese stole it from it. It means the Japanese just made cars better and cheaper than Americans did, so people buy Japanese cars. So yeah, I mean, you can say those things, but it's not reality, right? But it's a very, again, anybody who knows and understands this would say, yeah, he's just talking, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is where this is where a lot of Americans like him, is they think that America has this, we call it a deep state. It's like this government, this system that is there, and it's been there long time, and and no one can break through that, right? It's a political system or a state system, and he wants to kind of break that and bring in a new way of doing things. Yeah. It depends, though. Some people use it that way, and I think other people just use it to express the idea that there's a system that is not open. It's not open to normal, average Americans, and they're controlled by that system. And I'm not saying it could. Some people might say, yeah, it's a conspiracy theory, but other people would just say there's a system that's very unfair to me. Basically, the rich people get richer and the poor people get poorer, and I'm not getting anything out of it. And everything is controlled by those people, and the normal average people are not getting what they should have. So I think that's more of a general, vague way of thinking about what some people might call the deep state. Now, I don't, some people really say there is like a secret deep state that controls everything and controls everyone, and other people just say, well, it's an unfair system. Whatever you feel, I think this is where Donald Trump has gotten a lot of his support. Is people say, oh yeah, this guy, he comes from the outside. He's somebody who's willing to change things. So yeah, it's an interesting situation. Yeah, and I think the very interesting question too is where does it go after Donald Trump? Does it go back to the way it was before, or is this the beginning of a whole new long-term direction? Like you said, J.D. Vance, his vice president, what if he's elected, would he continue similar policies, or would he have his own direction, or what would he do? Or, I know, this is all very interesting. So anyhow, August, marks another, interesting, I was thinking about this too, 80 years since the atomic bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And so they're marking the 80 years since the atomic bombing. Now, of course, atomic is what? Yeah, 原子弹. So we say atomic. Now we talk about, we could say atomic energy, but usually we say what? We say nuclear energy, right? So that's the more common word. But we could say nuclear bomb or nuclear weapon, but I think nuclear is a broader term, right? Because we have an atomic bomb, but we also have another bigger bomb that's called a hydrogen bomb. Yeah, but it's still a nuclear weapon, right? Yeah. So when we talk about nuclear, I think it's a very broad term, and atomic is a very, yeah. So anyhow, why don't we say together, atomic bombing. Atomic bombing. Nuclear. Nuclear. Hydrogen bomb. Hydrogen bomb. Okay, so I'm sure you know this, but to mark means to remember, to commemorate, that's another word. Okay, so here it says here, Hiroshima yesterday marked the 80th anniversary of the U.S. atomic bombing of the West. Let me see if I can make this words a little smaller. Just hold on here a second. Have any of you been to Hiroshima? Anyone? Okay. I've been there one time. So it's a very nice city. And I visited of course, the atomic bomb museum, and there's many things there you can go see. So yeah, it's quite moving. Okay, so it says here, Hiroshima yesterday marked the 80th anniversary of the U.S. atomic bombing of the Western Japanese city, with many survivors expressing frustration about the growing support of global leaders for nuclear weapons as a deterrence. Now, this is an interesting word. What does deterrence mean? It comes from the verb to deter, D-E-T-E-R. To deter means to, what's another word for deter? To stop or to prevent. Okay? So, most countries, they will deter other countries from attacking them by doing what? By having a military, right? So, or buying weapons, right? So you buy weapons, or you have a military, an army, to deter other countries from attacking you, right? How do people deter thieves from entering their house, what do? Yeah, they have what? You were saying like bars on the window? Yeah. I remember people used to come to Taiwan, they look at all the windows and there were these bars on all the windows. But yeah, or locking your door, or buying an alarm system for your house. There's many ways to deter thieves, okay? So the word deter turns into a 名词 as deterrence, okay? It means a way to deter something, okay? So why don't we say it together? To deter. To deter. Deterrence. Deterrence. Okay, so it says here they're frustrated, the people in Hiroshima, by growing support of global leaders, like presidents and other leaders, for nuclear weapons as a deterrent. So basically, global leaders see nuclear weapons as a way to deter other countries, okay? So we say deterrence. Deterrence would also be, some people might say deterrence is like self-defense, right? Or national defense, or national security, okay? So why don't we read this together? Hiroshima yesterday marked the 80th anniversary of the U.S. atomic bombing of the Western Japanese city, with many survivors expressing frustration about the growing support of global leaders for nuclear weapons as a deterrence. Okay. And then I'll go on. It says, with the number of survivors rapidly declining and their average age now exceeding 86, the anniversary is considered the last milestone event for many of them. Now, I know we've talked about this word ago. What's a milestone? Yeah. So in your life, what are some milestones? Marriage? Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah, seriously, that is. Having children, right? Graduating from university or high school, or there's many different milestones. Some are big milestones, some are small milestones. My niece, she was very, very, very happy about a week ago because she passed her U.S. driver's license exam. And for American kids, I'm sure it's the same for Taiwanese kids too. But for American kids, in America you can get your driver's license at 16, okay? 16. Although you can often get your we say learning permit, when you're 15. So you get a permit which allows you to drive with another driver. If you're in a car with another driver, you can drive. But but 16 is when you can officially get your driver's permit. But she went to high school here in Taichung, so she went back to the U.S. for university, and she and my nephew, who is older than her, they're doing a road trip. They're driving, just the two of them, they're driving across the United States from Washington, Seattle, all the way over to East Coast. And so just the two of them. But she wanted to be able to drive too, so she had to take her test in Washington, and she had to pass the first time, because if she didn't, then they had their trip scheduled already. So she was very relieved that she passed on her first trip. I told her, I said, I failed my first test. So I did the same thing. I went back to America, and I thought I'll take my driver's test early in Hawaii. And of course I was very 紧张. And in Hawaii, when they do the test, they don't have a course. You have to go out on the road, on the real roads. And the examiner, he sits next to you, and he tells you, he says, okay, turn here, go there, and then he just watches you and he grades you, And of course, I wasn't used to that. So I failed my first time. And then I had to go to Bingzhou, Pennsylvania, and take it again, and then I succeeded my second time. So I told her, I said, "You're better than me. You passed your first time." So anyhow, that's a small milestone. But there's many big milestones in our lives. Things that we remember, things that are important. So why don't we say together, milestone? Milestone. Okay, so for these Hiroshima survivors, because they're average 86 years old, this is like their last milestone event for many of them. Not all of them, but for many of them, because they're getting older. So yeah. Okay, so here it says the number of survivors rapidly declining. Now here's the word, we talked about this word earlier, to decline, right? Is to refuse, to turn down. But here it also means to go down. So their numbers are declining, or rapidly, quickly declining, quickly going down. Okay, so let's read this together. With the number of survivors rapidly declining, let's say it again, rapidly declining, and their average age now exceeding 86. The anniversary is considered the last milestone event for many of them. Okay. Now, of course, I think you know this, but exceed is what? To exceed means 超过, right? Yeah, so if you say your speed is exceeding your driving is exceeding the speed limit, means you're going faster than the speed limit. Okay. So to exceed something. And if something is, if you want to turn this into a 形容, so you say it is excessive, right? Okay. So some people say, your speed, excessive speed, or you could say he is eating, excessively. It means you're eating too much food, right? Excessively. So why don't we say it together? Excessive. Excessive. Excessively. Excessively. Right. So that's a very common word when we do too much of something. Okay. So it says here, there will be nobody left to pass on this sad and painful experience in 10 years or 20 years. Minoru Suzuto, a 94-year-old survivor, said after he kneeled down to pray at the cenotaph. That's why I want to share my story as much as I can. Now, this is a very unusual word. Cenotaph is it's like a monument, okay? It's a kind of monument, and usually a cenotaph is like a big, usually I think of something like this. It's very big, and maybe it has lots of writing on it, but it's like a big, giant, I almost want to say pillar, but it's not a pillar. Pillar is usually more narrow, right? Kind of, but an obelisk is also kind of like a pillar. So a cenotaph is much bigger. It's just big. I don't know, it's hard to describe. I'll tell you, I know one cenotaph. Maybe you've been there or seen it. In Hong Kong, in downtown central Hong Kong, the British put up a big cenotaph to, and they call it the cenotaph, to remember the British, the soldiers who died in World War I and World War II. And it's right in the middle of downtown Hong Kong, and they used to have the British flags flying there. Of course, after 1999, and they don't have the flags, but they still have the cenotaph there. So it's a big monument, okay? So anyhow, it's just a monument, but it's usually very big, very huge. So why don't we say together? Cenotaph. 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 Monument. 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 Okay. Yeah. No, I mean Mount Rushmore is very, very unique, right? That's a cenotaph is usually man-made. It's like a, it would probably fit in this room, right? It's big enough. But Mount Rushmore is, that's huge. Well, yeah, but it's not a man-made monument. I mean, the faces are man-made, but the Yeah, it's just a. So I don't know if you've heard of Mount means mountain, Rushmore. It's a mountain in South Dakota, North Dakota. Yeah, I forget which one. South Dakota? Okay. And they've carved the faces, of 4 presidents. Yeah, there's George Washington, Lincoln, Theodore Roosevelt, who's, yeah. Maybe Donald Trump will probably add his face there, but is it? Boy, I should know this, but I think it's 4 presidents, right? Yeah, I know there's Lincoln, Washington, and Theodore Roosevelt, and I'm forgetting who the other one is. That's a good trivia question. Yeah, I should know that. But yeah, we call that Mount Rushmore, and that's a monument, but it's much bigger than an obelisk or a cenotaph. Huge. Yeah. I've never been there, but it'd be fun to go and see it. Okay. So anyhow, yeah. Oh, Thomas Jefferson. Okay. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. So of course, Washington and Jefferson are 2 of our founding fathers. And then Theodore. It's interesting they included Theodore Roosevelt, but I guess at the time he was considered a really great president, so they added him too. Lincoln, of course. Okay, so let's read this. There will be nobody left to pass on this sad and painful experience in 10 years or 20 years. Minoru Suzuto, a 94-year-old survivor, said after he kneeled down to pray at the cenotaph, "That's why I want to share my story as much as I can." Right. Okay. That's a photo caption. Okay, it says the bombing of Hiroshima on August 6, 1945, destroyed the city and killed 140,000 people. A second bomb dropped 3 days later on Nagasaki, killed 70,000. Japan surrendered on August 15th, ending World War II and Japan's nearly half-century of aggression in Asia. Okay, so a half-century would be how long? 50 years. Okay, so it says nearly, almost 50 years of aggression. What's aggression? Aggression, if you are aggressive towards somebody, it means you attack them, right? So if you are aggressive, it means you have that attitude, right? I use this word a lot because, when I do 跨文化训练, cross-cultural training, I say that if your own culture is more, your communication style is more indirect, and you meet somebody who is very direct, 很直接, often they feel their language sounds very aggressive, right? Even for me, like if I meet somebody who's very direct, I often feel like they're very aggressive, like they want to challenge me or they want to argue with me, and it makes me feel strange, even though maybe they're not actually feeling that way. But just the way, if you're talking to somebody and you express your opinion, they say, "I disagree with you." You're like, "Oh, okay. Why do you talk like that?" But that might be just their style of communication. But to my ear, it sounds very aggressive, right? S-S-I-V-E, okay? Now, of course, something can actually be aggressive, like if you see a dog and the dog is barking at you, you might say, "Oh, that dog looks very aggressive," right? Actually, sometimes you have to watch his tail. Is his tail wagging or not? Some dogs, they like to bark, but then you and then they're okay, But yeah. So why don't we say together, aggression, aggression, aggressive, aggressive. Okay, so this ended nearly almost 50 years of Japan's aggression in Asia. Okay, so so we have these 2 atomic bombs. Okay, so let's read this. The bombing of Hiroshima on August 6, 1945. Let's say it again. On August 6, 1945, destroyed the city and killed 140,000 people. A second bomb dropped 3 days later on Nagasaki, killed 70,000. Japan surrendered on August 15, ending World War II, and Japan's nearly half-century, let's say it again, nearly half-century of aggression in Asia. Right. Of course, you know the word surrender, right? It means to give up, right? To surrender. Okay. Yeah. Is what? Atomic bomb? Napalm. I think that many countries have signed a agreement to not use that in war anymore. But I don't think it's, I mean, I'm sure some countries still have it. I don't know what the current agreement on that. You know, because right now there's also many countries that have said we do not use landmines. You know what a landmine is? How do you say that? Yeah. But I'm sure many countries still have them, right? In fact, probably most countries have them. He's referring to a kind of weapon called napalm. It's a kind of bomb, and it uses gasoline, but it's been turned into like jelly, and when it hits, it burns and burns and burns. So it burns very, and of course it's a very terrible weapon. I mean, all weapons are terrible, but this is a really bad one. So yeah, some countries have said we will not use napalm in fighting, but yeah. So I don't know what the yeah. Who? Oh, LeMay, yeah. It wasn't actually. He didn't use. It was napalm, but I think it's more what we call incendiary bombs. It's a very long word. So it's a kind of bomb that it actually they're very small, and they drop many of them. And when they come down, they shoot out fire. But there's a difference between an incendiary bomb. I mean, I could say napalm is like maybe a kind of incendiary bomb, but not all incendiary bombs are napalm bombs. But they drop, if you watch the B-29s, they drop these many of these small bombs over Japanese cities. And of course, Japanese cities at the time, you know what they were made out of was wood and paper and things. So when those bombs hit those cities, it just created these huge fires, right? That would just burn and burn and burn and burn. I think when I think of napalm, I think napalm was probably used more in wars like Vietnam. Yeah. So anyhow, yeah, it's a very yeah. Anyhow, they all burn. These kind of weapons will burn. Yeah. Okay. So it says here, Hiroshima Mayor Kazumi Matsui warned against a growing acceptance of military buildups and using nuclear weapons for national security during Russia's war in Ukraine and conflicts in the Middle East, with the U.S. and Russia possessing most of the world's nuclear warheads. Now, when we say a warhead, what does that mean? It means the part of the missile, you know, like Feidan or whatever, that will explode. It's the bomb part of a. So when we talk about, like, some missiles, Feidan will have many warheads, right? Not just one. They can, you know, like many nuclear missiles or rockets, missiles. They go up and then they can shoot many. They have many warheads. One missile has many warheads that can hit many different cities. So this is, we say a warhead, it's like one bomb inside a missile. So we just use the word warhead. It's like a, yeah. Does everybody understand that? Okay. So yeah. So anyhow, yeah. Okay, so it says here acceptance of military buildups. Okay, what is a buildup? When you say a military buildup, what does that mean? Yeah, it means you're building up your military. you're buying more weapons, or you're increasing the size of your military. So when we talk about it, yeah, increase would be, I guess you could just simply say military increase or military growth, but we often use the word build up, okay? So why don't we say together military build-ups? Military build-ups. Okay, so yeah, let's read this together. Hiroshima Mayor Kazumi Matsui warned against a growing acceptance of military buildups and of using nuclear weapons for national security during Russia's war in Ukraine. And conflicts in the Middle East, with the U.S. and Russia possessing most of the world's nuclear warheads. Let's say it again, nuclear warheads. Right. Although I would add that I've been reading a lot recently that China is also increasing its nuclear warheads very quickly. Yeah, arsenal means, that's actually a good word. Does everybody know what an arsenal is? Oops, sorry, I'm spelling that wrong. Okay, so arsenal has two meanings. One is like, the traditional meaning is like he said, it's a building or a place where you store weapons, 武器, right? Like an actual building, right? But arsenal can also be the weapons that you own or possess. So you could say, how big is America's nuclear arsenal? It means how many nuclear weapons does America possess? Okay, so it can have a broader meaning, a bigger meaning. Just means how many weapons. You could even use this word for your own personal use. You could say he has a real arsenal of guns in his house, right? Actually, I know some people in America that actually have a real arsenal at home. My granduncle. I remember when I went. He lives in Bingzhou, or he used to. He's passed away. But I remember going to his house and he had this big cabinet and he had all these guns inside. And it was, for me, I thought that was very cool. I was like, this is great. He let me use the smallest of the guns. He was like, okay, I was 13岁. So he said, well, you can shoot the small one. I'll tell you what, he gave me a job. One day I was bored, and he said, okay, I have a job for you. He said, in our backyard, they have kind of like a yangtai, right, like a patio. He said, my big problem is too many birds come in and they 大便 all over my patio. And I have to clean that all the time. So he said, you can sit here for 2 or 3 hours, and if any birds come by, you can shoot them. And we use it's a small bullet. It's a 22. It's called a 22 round. And so yeah, that's what I did. I had a good time shooting birds. I mean, I felt kind of bad afterwards, but I think I don't know, maybe I didn't kill too many birds. I killed maybe about 5 or 6 birds. But that was his job for me. He said, you can do that. That will discourage the birds from coming here and making a mess in my backyard. Yeah. No, in Pennsylvania, there's no problem. Yeah. No, there were houses. He had neighbors. Yeah, no problem. No big deal. Yeah, no problem. Not all the time, but it's pretty normal. I mean, it's, yeah. So, yeah, it's no big deal. Really, honestly, it's no big deal. So, I mean, I'll tell you, some places are even more extreme. I still remember when I went to Montana, Montana, Joe. Yeah. And I remember going to the supermarket, Walmart. You know Walmart? And I remember I parked my car, and I was standing there, and there was a guy with his rifle, his gun, and he walked into Walmart, to buy something. Walmart sells bullets, 炸弹. So yeah, if you want to, not all Walmarts, but many Walmarts, they have a whole section there for guns. So you need more bullets, you go in and say, I want this kind of bullet, and they have boxes, right? And you can't just take them. They have to ask it's like, in Taiwan, if you buy whiskey, Joe, they have to unlock the door. But in America, it's like, I want those, but they unlock and they give you your bullets, right? So, yeah, in Montana. This is Montana. Yeah. In California, it would not be that easy. But in places like Montana, every state has their own rules, right? And so, but yeah, the guy walked in with his gun. He was carrying his gun. And most American states, they have a rule. They say, if you carry a gun, you have to have it in the open. People have to see it. So you can walk around with a gun on the outside of your. Now, if you want to hide your gun, if I want to put it in my bao or something, then I need to have a special permit that says I can hide my gun. We call that to conceal. It's like a conceal permit. So that means that I can hide my gun in my bag or my purse, and you buy a special thing. But if you don't have that, you have to have your gun so that other people can see your gun. And they, so sometimes you'll see people with a gun on the outside of their, carrying their gun on the outside, and it's legal. It's okay. Seems kind of strange, right, for Taiwan. But yeah, but every state is different. Every state has different rules. Yeah, that's an interesting question. That's kind of we say gray area, because you're supposed to have a gun permit, right? Like a permit, like a license to carry the gun. But a lot of people will sell and give guns away to other people, and that becomes a little bit hard to regulate, right? Because if I own a gun and I just say, hey, I'm going to give you this gun, or I'm going to sell that to you, and then you buy it, but then maybe you don't it's not registered in your name, and I don't know. I think sometimes this becomes a little bit tricky, how you regulate guns. So I think in America there's a lot of guns that are not regulated. Now I don't want to make you think that when you go to America everyone's carrying guns. No, it's not that way. But there are a lot of guns, Most people believe that if you're going to be responsible, you should, like, if you have a gun in your home, you should keep it in we call it a lock box. It's a small box. It's about this big, and you have a key. And then if you need to open it, you unlock it, you open it, you take the gun out, and then you can load it. And usually people can do that very quickly. Like if somebody comes, a 小偷 or a thief comes in your house, they can unlock that thing and get their gun out really quickly. But other people, I remember the same, I told you my granduncle, he had a handgun right next to his bed in his drawer there. He opened it up and there was a gun right there. So yeah. Yeah, so it's just very different from Taiwan. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, did we read this yet? We did. Okay. I think we're out of time, so anyhow, we'll end today with our conversation on guns. And so yeah, are there any final questions? Yeah.
What's the difference between the munition and ammunition?
It's almost the same, but ammunition is often for smaller guns, where munition is like any. So ammunition is like, 炸弹. And often there's a short way of saying this. Many Americans, instead of saying ammunition, they say ammo. Yeah. But munition, this word here, munition, is a much broader word. Munition could be like 废弹, it could be 炸弹, it could be, any kind of 武器. Yeah, it could be anything. Could be guns. Even a gun would be a kind of munition. But ammunition would be like the bullet, that you put into the gun. We say ammunition or ammo. Some people just say ammo. Yeah. So why don't we say together, ammunition. Ammunition. Ammo. And then this word, munition. Munition. Yeah. If you want to see this kind of stuff, just go onto YouTube. Watch YouTube. There's many American YouTube videos about people showing off their guns and shooting their guns, and it's like a hobby, right, for them. So yeah, it's kind of funny. Okay, so anyhow, that's all we have time for today, but we'll meet again next week. Okay, yeah. Okay, well, have a good week. We'll see you next time. Thank you.